The departure. The grand chamber of the Galactic Confederation sparkled with bioluminescent light that reflected off the crystalline architecture. Representatives from over 300 species occupied the tiered seating that encircled the central speaking floor. Some delegates had tentacles, others wings. Some glowed with internal light, while others shifted colors with their moods. Among this exotic assembly, Captain Maya Chen stood out precisely because of how ordinary she appeared. A human woman in a simple navy uniform with silver trim, her black hair pulled back in a regulation bun. She waited patiently as the chamber settled. This wasn't her first appearance before the Confederation Council, but it would almost certainly be her last. The Council recognizes Captain Maya Chen, representative of Earth and the Terran colonies, announced High Minister Zvex, a tall, willowy being whose skin rippled with patterns of light that reflected his emotional state. Currently, those patterns suggested boredom. "Thank you, High Minister," Maya said, her voice steady and clear. "For 73 years, humanity has been part of this confederation. For 73 years, we have contributed our labor, our innovation, and our resources to its growth and stability." Zyvex waved a 7-fingered hand dismissively. Yes, Captain Chen. We are all aware of Earth's contributions. What brings you before us today? Another petition for expanded settlement rights in the Orion Arm. Maya noted how several council members chuckled at this. Human petitions for equal rights have become something of a joke in the chamber. "No, High Minister. Today I bring not a petition, but a notification." She tapped her wrist device, projecting a document into the air for all to see. "In accordance with Article 37 of the Confederation Charter, I am formally announcing humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Confederation, effective 30 standard days from now." The chamber erupted. Some delegates laughed openly, while others shouted in outrage. A few sat perfectly still, eyes or sensory organs fixed on Maya with newfound intensity. Zvex's skin flashed bright yellow surprise. "Captain Chen, surely you understand that Earth cannot possibly survive without Confederation support. Your colonies depend on our trade networks, our technology, our protection." Maya allowed herself a small smile. "With respect, High Minister, we have prepared for this day for decades. Our colonies are self-sufficient. Our defense forces are ready. Our people are united in this decision. What would you have us do to prevent this unfortunate action?" asked Councillor Nirok of the Taurian Collective, one of the few who had occasionally supported human initiatives. Maya tapped her device again, displaying a new document. "Our terms are simple: equal voting rights on the Council, unrestricted settlement rights in uninhabited systems, fair access to all trading routes, removal of technology restrictions on human worlds, and full recognition of human contributions to Confederation projects." "Absurd," shouted Delegate Vrex, his scales flaring red. "Humans have been part of the Confederation for mere decades. Some of us have been members for millennia. You demand privileges you have not earned." Maya faced him calmly. "We don't see them as privileges, Delegate Vrex. We see them as basic rights that should be extended to all sentient species." High Minister Zvex's skin had settled into a pattern of purple and blue, calculation and control. "Captain Chen, the Council will need time to consider these proposals." "You have 30 days, Maya replied. "After that, every human in Confederation space will return to Terran territory. Every human-operated system, facility, and service will cease operations. We have prepared detailed transition documents, but as you've repeatedly refused our offers to train your personnel in our methods." She left the implication hanging in the air. As she turned to leave, an ancient delegate rose from his seat. Elder Corvalin of the Mithridian Ascendancy was rumored to be over 700 years old and rarely spoke in council sessions anymore. "Listen to her," the elder said, his voice surprisingly strong. "I have observed humanity since they first reached beyond their solar system. They do not make empty threats. When they commit to a course of action, they follow through." "Thank you for your concern, Elder," Zyvex said smoothly, But surely this is merely a negotiating tactic. Maya paused at the chamber door. 30 days, High Minister. I suggest you use them wisely. The next 30 days passed in a frenzy of activity throughout human space. The Terran Disengagement Protocol, a plan decades in the making, moved from theoretical exercise to actual implementation. On stations, ships, and outposts across Confederation territory, humans began the process of extracting themselves from the galactic community they had helped build. In her office aboard the Terran flagship Resilience, Maya reviewed the latest readiness reports with Admiral Kenji Takeda. Engineering Corps reports all critical infrastructure in human space is operating at 115% capacity, Kenji said. Agricultural systems are producing surplus on all colonies. Defense grid is fully operational. Medical facilities have stockpiled supplies for at least 3 years. Maya nodded. And the Exodus? On schedule. 90% of our people have already returned to Terran space. The remaining 10% are essential personnel who will depart on the final day. He hesitated. The Confederation still doesn't believe we're serious. Their official channels are broadcasting that this is a temporary human protest that will be resolved soon. They'll learn differently soon enough, Maya said quietly. Meanwhile, in the Confederation Council, debate raged. A minority faction led by Councillor Niruk argued for granting at least some of the human demands. They manage 60% of our deep space communications network, Niruk pointed out. They operate 47% of our automated agricultural systems. Their security forces patrol our most vulnerable trade routes. Can we truly afford to lose all that overnight? High Minister Zyvex remained unmoved. We managed before humans joined the Confederation, and we will manage after their theatrical departure. If necessary, we can bring them back on our terms once they realize how dependent they truly are on our cosmic civilization. Elder Corvalin shook his head sadly. You misunderstand humans fundamentally, High Minister. They would rather face hardship independently than prosperity under what they perceive as unjust conditions. In the end, the Council voted overwhelmingly to reject the human demands, with only 17 out of 300 members voting in favor. They established a committee to manage the temporary disruption that might follow the human departure and considered the matter settled. On the 30th day, Captain Maya Chen stood on the bridge of the Resilience, watching the status updates flow in from across Confederation space. Final human personnel have departed Centaurid Hub, reported her communications officer. Automation systems transferred to local control with basic operational instructions as per protocol. Similar reports came in from hundreds of locations, space stations, planetary outposts, trading centers, agricultural facilities, security checkpoints, and communications hubs. At each site, the departing humans left behind detailed instructions for continuing operations. But as Elder Corvalin had warned, there was a vast difference between theoretical knowledge and practical experience. Maya opened a channel to the Confederation Council, where an emergency session was underway. High Minister Zevex, this is Captain Chen. As of this moment, humanity has formally withdrawn from the Galactic Confederation. All human personnel, ships, and resources have returned to Terran space. We have left operational instructions for all systems formerly under our management. We wish you well. Zivex's skin pulsed with confident blue patterns. Captain Chen, the Confederation acknowledges your statement. We expect this theatrical gesture will soon give way to more reasonable negotiations when you recognize the realities of galactic civilization. Maya ended the transmission without responding. She looked around at her bridge crew. Humans who had spent years or decades working alongside aliens who had never truly seen them as equals. Set course for Earth, she ordered. Maximum speed. As the massive human fleet jumped to FTL, leaving Confederation space behind, the first warnings began to appear on monitoring stations across the galaxy. On Centauri Hub, the massive space station that served as the primary transfer point for goods moving between the inner and outer spiral arms, Station Director Pelks frowned at his control panel. The environmental systems were showing unusual fluctuations. Contact maintenance. He ordered an assistant. Sir, maintenance was primarily staffed by humans. They've all departed. Then find someone else. The systems were designed and installed by humans, sir. Our technical staff say they don't fully understand the integration protocols. Pelkz waved dismissively. It's just an environmental fluctuation. The station has redundancies. 12 hours later, life support on 3 levels of Centauri Hub failed completely. At the Groven Agricultural Collective, which supplied food for 22 worlds in the Proxima sector, Overseer Mantrix was reviewing production reports when the irrigation systems suddenly shut down. What's happening? She demanded. The central control system is asking for an authorization code, her assistant reported nervously. The humans who managed the system always handled this. Did they leave instructions? Yes, but the manual is extensive and written in what they call technical English. Mantrix hissed in frustration. Figure it out. We have billions of crop units that will die without water. By the end of the first week, reports of similar problems were flooding in from across Confederation space. Communication relays failed. Automated defense systems went offline. Agricultural domes stopped regulating their internal climates. Supply chains broke down as transportation networks became unreliable. In the council chamber, High Minister Zyvex was no longer bored. This is clearly sabotage, he declared, his skin flashing angry red. The humans deliberately set their systems to fail after they left. Elder Corvalin spoke up. I've reviewed their transition documents. There was no sabotage. They left complete instructions. But systems they built and maintained for decades cannot simply be handed over without proper training and experience. Then we will demand they return and fix what they broke, Zyvex declared. They broke nothing, Corvalin replied quietly. They simply stopped keeping everything working for us while we took their contributions for granted. As the first month without humans drew to a close, the Confederation faced an uncomfortable truth. They had never truly understood how deeply humanity had integrated into the functioning of their galactic society. The Reckoning. 3 months after humanity's departure, Admiral Corellin of the Vorathi Empire stood in the observation dome of his flagship, watching as another refugee ship limped toward the fleet. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep distress among his kind. How many does that make, Commander Vrax? He asked. His second-in-command consulted a datapad. 17 today, Admiral. This one is from Proxima Colony. Their life support systems failed 2 weeks ago. Corellin's outer membrane rippled with tension. The Vorathi Empire was one of the oldest and most powerful members of the Confederation, second only to the Mithridians in technological advancement. Yet even they were struggling to maintain order in their sector since the humans left. What's the status of our relief efforts? Strained beyond capacity, sir. Our engineers still can't fully replicate the integration systems the humans designed for our main power grid. We've had to abandon 3 outposts in the Ta sector because we simply can't maintain them. Corellin turned away from the viewport. And the Council? Still debating, sir. High Minister Zyvex maintains that this is a temporary crisis that will resolve once our specialists fully understand the human systems. After 3 months. Corellin's voice rose in pitch. We are the Vorathi, masters of quantum engineering for 12,000 years, and we cannot understand their systems after 3 months. The humans approached technology differently, sir. They created integrated systems that adapted and evolved. Our engineers say it's like trying to understand an organism rather than a machine. Corellin moved to his command console, bringing up a galactic map. Nearly 60% of it was marked in warning colors. Systems experiencing serious failures, planets facing resource shortages, stations operating at minimal capacity. And what of human space? He asked quietly. Commander Vrax hesitated. Our intelligence is limited since they closed their borders, but all indications suggest they are thriving, sir. Their worlds show no signs of the shortages affecting the Confederation. Their communications network functions perfectly. Their defense grid is fully operational. They prepared for this. It wasn't a question. Yes, sir. For decades, apparently. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place as the true scope of the crisis became impossible to ignore. On the agricultural world of Tellus Prime, Governor Zillith faced riots as food distributions fell to critical levels. The massive environmental domes that once produced enough food for billions now operated at less than 30% capacity. The temperature regulation systems keep failing, his agricultural minister explained. The humans designed them to be self-correcting, but without their maintenance routines, the calibrations drift. We're losing entire harvests. Can't our scientists reverse engineer their methods? Zillith demanded. They're trying, Governor, but the humans didn't just build systems. They evolved them over decades. There are underlying principles we still don't fully grasp. At the Central Banking Authority, economic analysts watched in horror as trade volume across the Confederation plummeted. With transportation networks unreliable and communication systems failing intermittently, the once seamless galactic economy was fracturing into isolated pockets. We're seeing a 70% reduction in overall trade, reported Chief Analyst Vorn to the Banking Council. Critical resource shortages are reported in over 200 systems. Some outer colonies have reverted to primitive barter systems. How did this happen? Demanded Council Head Merix. The humans were just one species out of hundreds. They operated or maintained key infrastructure in virtually every sector, Vorn explained. They were our engineers, our technicians, our problem solvers. We relegated them to those roles because we considered them beneath our dignity, and never realized those roles were actually the foundation everything else depended on. In the Grand Chamber of the Confederation Council, an emergency session had been in progress for nearly 20 days straight. The elegant room no longer sparkled. Energy conservation measures had dimmed the lights, and many delegates attended via hologram to save on transportation resources. High Minister Zivex, whose skin patterns now showed constant stress and fatigue, called for order. The Committee on Human Reintegration will present their findings. Committee Chair Niruk stepped forward. Ministers, delegates, the situation is worse than initially assessed. Our preliminary review suggests that approximately 65% of critical Confederation infrastructure was either designed, built, maintained, or operated by humans before their departure. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Furthermore, Niruk continued, humans served as primary security forces in 47% of our major trade routes and stations. Since their departure, piracy has increased by over 300%. Food production across the Confederation has fallen by 52%. Communication reliability has decreased by 67%. These are temporary disruptions, insisted Delegate Vrex. Our species mastered the stars while humans were still using primitive combustion engines. Elder Corvalin's voice cut through the chamber. Yet for all our advanced knowledge, we fail to notice how dependent we have become on their practical skills. We assigned humans to what we considered menial roles: maintenance, security, technical integration, while we focused on what we deemed higher pursuits. We never realized those menial tasks were actually the foundation that kept our civilization functioning. High Minister Zivex's skin had settled into a dull gray pattern. Resignation. What does the committee recommend? Niruk hesitated. We must negotiate for humanity's return. Based on our analysis, the Confederation cannot sustainably function without them unless we commit to a massive reorganization that would take decades and cause significant suffering in the interim. Negotiate. Vrex hissed. You mean surrender to their demands? I mean recognize reality. Niruk replied firmly. We need them more than they need us. Meanwhile, in human space, a very different situation was unfolding. Without the restrictions and resource tributes imposed by the Confederation, human colonies were flourishing. New settlements expanded rapidly in previously restricted star systems. Trade between human worlds grew exponentially. Without the need to conform to Confederation protocols, innovation accelerated at an unprecedented pace. Captain Maya Chen, recently promoted to Admiral, stood in the Earth Central Command Center, reviewing the latest reports from across human territory. Agricultural production up 35%, noted her aide. Industrial capacity increased by 42%. Research breakthroughs in fusion technology, medical nanorobots, and quantum communications all reported this quarter. Maya nodded. And our borders? Secure, Admiral. We've detected increased Confederation scout activity, but no hostile movements. Refugee requests continue to increase, mostly non-aligned worlds affected by the Confederation's infrastructure collapse. Maintain humanitarian aid to non-aligned systems, Maya ordered, but the Confederation must solve its own problems. Speaking of which, her aide added, we've received a formal communication request from the Confederation Council. High Minister Zivex wishes to speak with you personally. Maya considered this for a moment. Very well. Put it through to my office. On her private view screen, Zivex appeared. He looked noticeably aged, his skin patterns dull and sluggish. Admiral Chen, he began formally. I trust this transmission finds you well. Quite well, Minister Zivex. How may I help you? Zivex's skin flickered briefly with annoyance before he controlled it. The Confederation Council wishes to open a dialogue regarding humanity's concerns about our previous relationship. I see. And has the Council's position on our terms changed? The Council recognizes that certain accommodations may be necessary for the mutual benefit of all species, Zivex said carefully. Maya smiled slightly. That's not quite the same as accepting our terms, Minister. Surely you don't wish to see suffering spread across the galaxy. Zivex's tone hardened. Reports must have reached you of food shortages, medical crisis, failing stations. Is this the outcome humanity wanted? No, Maya said firmly. It's the outcome we warned would happen. The outcome you dismissed as impossible because you couldn't imagine that humans were actually essential to the Confederation's functioning. Zivex was silent for a moment. The Council is prepared to offer 3 seats instead of 1. Settlement rights in 10 new systems. Priority access to trading hubs. Those terms might have been acceptable 3 months ago, Maya replied. But the situation has changed. Humanity is thriving independently. Meanwhile, every passing day demonstrates that the Confederation needs us far more than we need the Confederation. What do you want? Zivex asked, his patterns showing clear frustration. Full voting equality. 1 species, 1 vote. Unrestricted settlement rights in uninhabited systems. Complete technological autonomy. And official recognition of humanity's contributions to the Confederation's development. That would fundamentally alter the power structure that has maintained galactic peace for millennia. Yes, Maya agreed. A power structure that failed to recognize the value of every sentient species' contributions. A power structure that's currently collapsing because it marginalized the very people who kept it functioning. The older species will never accept such terms, Zivex warned. Then they will continue to watch their carefully constructed civilization crumble, Maya replied calmly. Meanwhile, humanity will continue to grow stronger on our own. The choice is yours, Minister. After the transmission ended, Maya stood at her office window, looking out at the gleaming towers of New Geneva. Humanity had never wanted to leave the galactic community. They had simply wanted to be recognized as equal partners in it. 3 days later, a formal delegation arrived from the Confederation, led not by Zivex, but by Elder Corvalin of the Mithridian Ascendancy and Councillor Nirok of the Taurian Collective. We come with full authority to negotiate, Corvalin said as they sat in Earth's diplomatic chamber. The Council has recognized that the current crisis demands unprecedented solutions. We're listening, Maya replied. Full voting equality, Nirok said, pushing forward a document. Settlement rights in uninhabited systems with reasonable environmental impact assessments. Technological autonomy with safety oversight committees comprised equally of humans and non-humans. Maya reviewed the document carefully, and recognition of humanity's contributions. A formal acknowledgement will be entered into the Confederation records, Corvalin said, and a new position will be created, Confederation Infrastructure Coordinator, with a human always holding the role. Maya considered this. There's one more condition. The Confederation must extend these same rights to all sentient species, not just humans. Equality cannot be a special privilege just for us. Corvalin and Niruk exchanged glances. That would mean a complete restructuring of Confederation governance, Niruk said hesitantly. Yes, Maya agreed. One that's long overdue. Corvalin's ancient eyes studied her. You never wanted special treatment for humans. You wanted to change the system for everyone. The Confederation has incredible potential, Maya replied. But it can't achieve that potential while clinging to hierarchies based on age rather than contribution. If we return, it will be to a confederation where every species has an equal voice and equal opportunity. The transition would be challenging, Corvalin mused. Millennia of tradition don't change overnight. Neither does a collapsing civilization rebuild itself overnight, Maya countered. But humans are very good at solving practical problems. Perhaps we could help with that too. In the end, the choice was inevitable. The Confederation needed humanity's practical skills and innovative approach too desperately to refuse their terms. The agreement, formally titled the Geneva Reformation, was ratified by a narrow margin in the Council, with Elder Corvalin casting the deciding vote. 6 months after their departure, humans began returning to Confederation space, not as subordinate workers, but as equal partners in a transformed galactic community. They brought with them not just their technical skills and practical knowledge, but a fundamentally different perspective on how civilizations should organize themselves. As the first human technical teams arrived at Centaurid Hub to restore its failing systems, Station Director Pelks watched with a newfound respect. I never understood, he admitted to the human team leader. How did you build all this without us noticing how essential it was? The technician smiled as her team began work on the environmental controls. You were looking at the stars, Director Pelks. Someone needed to make sure the lights stayed on while you did.